Hello and welcome back to Irene's Book Club. Today we'll be reading Wind in the Willows. And remember, this story can also be used as a sleep story. So ask your parents to put it on their phone and you can listen to it when you go to sleep. This is one of my favorite books. I hope you like it too. Now let's get started. Wind in the Willows. Mole lived in a gloomy underground house all by himself. One morning, he worked so hard spring cleaning that his arms began to ache. "I'm tired of this," he cried, heading out into the sunlight. He ran across meadows and by bushes, passing rabbits and birds and beautiful flowers as he went. Soon, Mole reached the riverbank and looked across the water. He saw a little brown face with whiskers and twinkly eyes. "I'm Ratty," called the friendly creature. "Do you want to come for a boat ride?" Mole had never been in a boat before, so he eagerly stepped in. "Do you ever get bored of living here?" asked Mole as they rowed down the river. "No, I have lots of friends," replied Ratty. "Here's one now." Ratty waved as Mr. Toad rowed past. "Last year, Toad loved to sail his boat," he said with a chuckle, "but now he loves rowing instead." Ratty docked the boat and laid out a picnic. Later, his friends Badger and Otter joined them and told stories about Mr. Toad. When it was time to go home, Ratty asked Mole, "Would you like to come and stay with me?" Mole was so pleased he could hardly speak. Ratty spent the summer teaching Mole to row and swim. Then one day, Mole asked to meet Mr. Toad. "I've heard so much about him," he said. So they rowed down the river until the magnificent Toad Hall appeared. "How splendid to see you!" cried Toad, welcoming them with open arms. Toad had forgotten all about his love of rowing and showed them his brand new yellow wagon. "We must take it out this afternoon," he cried. "I'm not going anywhere," said Ratty, who hated leaving the river. But Toad soon convinced them to go on an adventure on the open road. The next morning, Toad, Ratty, and Mole heard a loud honk, honk behind the wagon. Suddenly, a speedy motor car zoomed around the corner, leaving a cloud of dust. Their horse was so frightened, it reared up and pulled the wagon into a ditch with a crash. It fell on its side and was wrecked. "You villains!" cried angry Ratty at the drivers, but Toad couldn't take his eyes off the disappearing vehicle. "Are you coming to fix the wagon, Toad?" asked Ratty. "Oh no, I'm done with that forever," Toad replied. The next thing they heard, Toad had bought his very own expensive motor car. After the adventure with Toad, winter came. Ratty spent most of his time sleeping, so Mole went to visit Badger in the wild wood. It was cold and dark there, and he saw scary shadows everywhere. At last, Mole huddled in the hollow of an old tree and waited. "Mole, where are you?" cried Ratty, waking up after his nap. He found Mole's footprints outside and went to look for him at once. After hours of searching, he found his friend, tired and shaking. Before the colt could return home, Ratty cried, "Oh no, it's snowing!" The wild wood looks completely different. It had a gleaming white carpet and tiny flakes filled the air. Each path looked exactly the same, and there seemed to be no way out. The snow was so deep, Ratty and Mole tumbled over on their legs and got wet. Suddenly, to Mole's surprise, Ratty cried, "Look, a doormat! Hooray!" Finally, after digging in the snow, they found an iron bell by a dark green door. There was a shiny gold sign next to it. "Mr. Badger." "Come in," said Badger when he answered the door. "You must be freezing." Kind Badger helped Ratty and Mole get warm and gave them a delicious dinner. Then he asked about Toad. He had seven car crashes," said Ratty, shaking his head. "I'm sure he'll hurt himself again or get into more trouble." They decided to visit Toad the next day. When they got to Toad Hall, they saw a brand new shiny motor car. "Unless you promise to give up cars forever," said Badger, "we're going to take you away your keys and lock you in your house." Toad refused, so his friends dragged him inside as he kicked and struggled. Each animal took turns guarding Toad until one morning he asked Ratty to fetch the doctor. "He must be really ill," said Ratty. He locked the door and ran to the village, while Sneaky Toad hopped out of bed, made his sheets into a rope, and climbed out of a window. Toad marched into town. He felt very proud of himself for escaping. Suddenly he heard beep, beep as a car stopped nearby. No sooner had the owner gotten out than Toad found himself at the wheel, roaring and racing down the country lanes faster than ever before. "Woo-hoo!" he cried. It wasn't long before Toad was caught and sent to prison for stealing the car. 20 years for you," said the judge, and Toad was led to the dungeon. "Cheer up, Toad," said the guard's kind daughter who loved animals. "I know how you can get out of here." The girl helped Toad switch clothes with her aunt, who was the prison's washerwoman. Dressed in his clever disguise, Toad walked straight out of the prison gates. "I'm free!" cried Toad, heading to the train station. He had no money for a ticket, but the kind driver gave him a ride. See you next. The next part will be in our next episode. Now, I hope you enjoyed and see you next time on Irene's Book Club. Bye!